The average gardener spends hundreds of dollars yearly on fertilizers that destroy their soil and produce vegetables with half the nutrients they should have. But there's a 10,000-year-old system that costs nothing, builds soil instead of depleting it, and produces food so nutrient-dense that one tomato has more vitamins than 3 from a conventional garden. The problem isn't your plants, it's your soil. Here's how to feed your garden without buying fertilizer ever again, using the soil-first system that Seymour perfected over decades of self-sufficient living. The fundamental mistake modern gardening made was treating soil like inert dirt that just holds plants upright while you pour synthetic chemicals on top. But soil is alive with billions of organisms per handful, and when you feed those organisms instead of the plant directly, everything changes. Seymour's core principle is simple but revolutionary. Feed the soil, not the plant. Because healthy soil creates healthy plants automatically, and healthy plants resist pests, resist disease, produce more food, and taste better than anything you can buy. This is the soil-first philosophy Seymour spent decades refining. 1 teaspoon of healthy soil contains more living organisms than there are people on Earth, including bacteria that break down organic matter, fungi that transport nutrients to roots, protozoa that regulate populations, nematodes that cycle nutrients, and earthworms that create channels for air and water while producing perfect fertilizer. When you dump synthetic fertilizers on this ecosystem, you're dropping a nuclear bomb on a city because those salts kill microorganisms, destroy soil structure, and force plants to depend entirely on you for nutrition, creating a dependency cycle where you buy more every year as your soil gets deader. The alternative is composting, which is the foundation of the soil-first system and the only fertilizer you'll ever need.
Compost is decomposed organic matter, and when you add it to soil, you're not just adding nutrients. You're adding billions of beneficial organisms. You're adding organic matter that holds water and nutrients, you're adding humus that improves soil structure, and you're creating a self-sustaining system that gets better every year instead of worse. Starting a compost pile is absurdly simple, and you can do it in any space, from a tiny apartment balcony to a suburban backyard. Find a spot that's convenient to access year-round, ideally in partial shade so it doesn't dry out too fast, and start piling organic material in layers, because the magic happens when you alternate carbon-rich brown materials with nitrogen-rich green materials. Brown materials like dried leaves, straw, paper, and wood chips provide carbon that gives compost structure and feeds fungi. Green materials like kitchen scraps, grass clippings, and manure provide nitrogen that heats the pile and feeds bacteria doing decomposition work. Aim for roughly 3 parts brown to 1 part green by volume. And if your pile smells bad, add more brown. While if it's not heating up, add more green. Keep the pile as moist as a wrung-out sponge because organisms need water, but too much drives out oxygen and creates anaerobic conditions. Turn your pile every few weeks by moving material from outside to inside, which incorporates oxygen, redistributes moisture, and speeds decomposition. In 3 to 6 months, you'll have finished compost that looks like dark soil, smells like forest floor, and it's worth more than anything you could buy. Once your composting engine is running, it's time to close the loop with animals. The second pillar is integrating animals because they transform scraps into high-quality fertilizer while producing eggs or meat, closing the nutrient loop. 3 chickens need only 10 square feet. They'll eat your scraps and produce 1,000 eggs yearly, plus nitrogen-rich manure that's the best fertilizer when composted. Chicken manure is high in nitrogen, so you cannot apply it fresh or it burns plants. But composting it for 3 to 6 months makes it safe and perfect for heavy feeders like tomatoes and brassicas. Add it to your compost in thin layers with brown material, and composting kills pathogens and creates fertilizer that costs nothing. If you can't keep chickens, rabbits are excellent because they're quiet, clean, need little space, and their manure can be applied directly without composting. Rabbit manure is cold manure. Lower in nitrogen than chicken manure, won't burn plants, and is packed with nutrients plants can use immediately.
The third pillar is green manure, which is the practice of growing plants specifically to cut down and incorporate into the soil, and it's one of the most powerful techniques for building fertility without any external inputs. Legumes like clover, vetch, field peas, and fava beans are the stars of green manure because they have a symbiotic relationship with bacteria that live in nodules on their roots. And these bacteria take nitrogen from the air and convert it into a form that plants can use, essentially creating fertilizer out of thin air. Plant a green manure crop in any bed that's not producing food, which might be in fall after your summer crops finish, in early spring before you plant,
or in rotation as part of your 4-year crop rotation system. Let the green manure grow until just before it flowers because that's when the plant has maximum biomass and nutrients, then cut it down and either lay it on the surface as mulch or incorporate it into the top few inches of soil where it will decompose and release nutrients for your next crop. One bed planted with fava beans over winter will fix enough nitrogen to feed a heavy feeder like cabbage or broccoli the following season. And you didn't buy anything, you didn't import anything, you just managed the system intelligently and let biology do the work. This is free fertility, created by biology, not by buying something. The fourth pillar is mulching, which most gardeners think is just about weed control, but it's actually one of the most powerful fertility building techniques available. Organic mulch like straw, leaves, grass clippings, or wood chips does suppress weeds by blocking light, but more importantly, it feeds soil organisms as it slowly decomposes, it moderates soil temperature so organisms stay active longer, it retains moisture so you water less, and it protects soil structure from rain impact and erosion. Apply 2 to 4 inches of organic mulch around your plants, keeping it a few inches away from stems to prevent rot, and as it decomposes over the season, it's literally feeding your soil while protecting it. By the end of the season, that mulch layer will have shrunk as organisms consumed it and transformed it into humus, so you add another layer. And year after year, your soil gets deeper, darker, richer, and more alive.
Mulch doesn't just protect soil, it feeds it. The fifth pillar is understanding nutrient cycling through crop rotation, because different plant families have different nutrient needs and different effects on soil. And when you rotate them intelligently, you're essentially letting plants fertilize each other. Legumes fix nitrogen and leave soil richer than they found it, so they should be followed by heavy feeders like brassicas that need lots of nitrogen. Brassicas are followed by moderate feeders like tomatoes and peppers that need less nitrogen, and those are followed by light feeders like roots and alliums that need minimal nitrogen, and then you're back to legumes to rebuild the nitrogen for the next cycle. This 4-year rotation means you're never depleting the soil because you're always balancing what you take with what you give, and you're doing it through intelligent management rather than purchased inputs. The final pillar is patience and observation. Because the soil-first system doesn't give instant results like synthetic fertilizers do, but it gives permanent results that compound over time. Your first year, you're building the system, establishing compost piles, integrating animals if possible, starting to mulch, and your garden might not look that different from a conventional garden. Your second year, the soil is noticeably better, darker, easier to work, and your plants are healthier and more productive. By your third year, people will ask what your secret is because your tomatoes are huge, your soil is black, and you're growing more food in less space than they thought possible. By your fifth year, you have soil that's so alive and so rich that you can grow things that shouldn't even grow in your climate. And you haven't bought fertilizer once. You've just managed the system.
Here's what this means in practice. Instead of spending $200 per year on fertilizers that kill your soil, you spend nothing and your soil gets better every year. Instead of plants that are weak and pest-prone because they're force-fed synthetic nutrients, you have plants that are strong and resilient because they're drawing from a complete ecosystem. Instead of vegetables that look good but taste bland and have minimal nutrition, you have vegetables that taste incredible and are packed with vitamins and minerals because they're grown in living soil. The soil-first system isn't a technique, it's a philosophy, and once you understand it, you'll never garden the same way again. You'll see a bag of synthetic fertilizer and recognize it for what it is, which is a short-term crutch that creates long-term dependency and destroys the very thing you're trying to build. So start today by starting a compost pile with your kitchen scraps and yard waste. Stop using synthetic fertilizers immediately because every application makes your soil worse. Add organic mulch around your plants to feed soil organisms. And if possible, integrate a few chickens or rabbits to close the nutrient loop. Within 1 season, you'll see the difference. Within 3 years, you'll have soil that's unrecognizable from where you started, and you'll never buy fertilizer again because you won't need to. Feed the soil, and the soil feeds you. Your garden will feed itself, and all you have to do is manage the system.